Welcome to the Boy from Yesterday serial podcast. I'm KB Howard, the author of The Boy from Yesterday, and for this chapter I'd like to offer a special request. I'd like to hear from the listeners who are enjoying this story. Hopefully you have heard the other chapters of the story, starting with chapter 1 and all the way through chapter 29, the most recent chapter, as we start with chapter 30 today. But I would like to hear from you. I'd like to hear what you like so far about the story, maybe even some of what you don't like, and any questions that you have. And then I'll answer the questions and comment on the feedback that I've received in future chapters as we near the end of the story. So to reach me, it's best to email, and that's at kbhmsw@aol.com. Again, that's kbhmsw@aol.com. Also, I'd like to request that you leave a rating and a comment if you're listening to this on iTunes or other areas where podcasts have reviews and comments. Also, on Facebook, there's a fan page for The Boy from Yesterday, and I'd love to hear your comments and feedback of any kind there as well. I want to hear from the listeners because it's important that I get some feedback from you on the story, and hopefully we can spread the word so that other people can enjoy the story too, as much as I enjoy telling it to you. So now, chapter 30, The Psychic. Laurel was up early, not sleeping well with her mind racing and the crazy dreams. She got ready early and was soon outside to see Tom. Tom was already up and outside, sitting at a little garden table outside the barn apartment, reading the morning paper he had taken off of Marguerite's front porch. He pored through the paper, trying to understand the modern day and to get new ideas of where to look for the magic words to the ring, while in the back of his mind trying to also think of ways to convince Christian to give back the ring, or at least ways to overpower him enough to get it back. He saw an ad for Dizzy Duck Appliances, with a cartoon duck with crazy eyes. He focused on the words, Dizzy Duck. Something about that made his heart race faster, like he was remembering something. He repeated the words over and over, not knowing what they meant. Then he remembered. It wasn't Dizzy Duck that he remembered, it was Zizzy Zuck. Or was it? He knew that something about those words was familiar. He had spoken them himself. He wasn't sure now that the incantation that controlled the magic ring had those words in it, but that was all he could remember. He tried to recall more, but nothing came. He looked up and saw Laurel. It raised his spirits just to see her every morning. She looked worried already, and explained to him what had occurred the night before when she was getting ready for bed. She looked fine now, though, and everything seemed visible on her. Then he looked again and could see the old maple tree's trunk right through where her left forearm should be. She gestured to sweep her hair away from her face, and her forearm was visible again. Tom had noticed an ad for a local psychic shop in the paper. They decided to go see her, for even though there was a huge risk that she would be a fake, if she wasn't, if she held some kind of supernatural talent, which they knew for now was real, then she might be able to help. It was worth a shot, especially considering the circumstances and a constant feeling that there was no time to lose. Laurel wore jeans and a long-sleeve hoodie to cover her legs and arms as much as possible so no one else could see or not see anything that would call attention to her in their walk through town. She pulled down the sleeves and adjusted the neck so that she would be comfortable but still covered, not wanting to draw attention to herself if she had begun to have parts of her become invisible by others. Laurel had passed the psychic shop 1,000 times on Main Street without really noticing it, except for the tacky green neon sign in the window and some cheap plaster Egyptian artifact replicas displayed on a little shelf in the window. This time, though, she and Tom went in, and little bells on the door announced their arrival to the empty waiting room. A placard was displayed on the counter of the front desk in an old English script. It read, "Madam Berthium sees your past, present, spelled with a C, future." Laurel's heart sank, losing confidence already that the supposedly gifted psychic couldn't even spell the word present correctly. Tom noticed it too. "Well, that doesn't make me feel any better," Tom said, pointing at the placard. Laurel was a bit surprised that Tom had the education to know things like spelling, being raised on a farm in the 1880s, but she knew from Tom's description of the game they played the other night that he knew many things from his time that she would probably never know. The room was silent. Tom looked around while Laurel took out her phone and texted Emily again. "You okay?" She was concerned. It wasn't like Emily to go more than a few hours without texting her. She texted TJ too. "Where is Em? No word from her since yesterday. Where are you? All okay?" Tom just stared at Laurel's feverish typing on the tiny screen. He was starting to get used to seeing that, but he still didn't quite understand how it was all possible. How could a hand telegraph, as he liked to call Laurel's iPhone, that small, still work? She barely hit send when, from seemingly nowhere, a somewhat chubby lady with fluffy red hair under a green satin turban, wearing heavy eye makeup, appeared in the doorway leading to the back room. She wore a big gold pendant of a pyramid around her neck. Her blouse was purple and loose-fitting around her large bosom. She wore black slacks that didn't look particularly fancy, and lots of thin gold bracelets jingled from both her wrists. She certainly looked the part of a psychic, if also a small-town one. "Good morning," she said. "I am Madame Berthium. You may call me Madame, it's all right. Come back here," she said, as she gestured and beckoned them to come into the back room. The back room was nothing fancy. It was basically a card table with a white tablecloth on it and some modest white wooden chairs that looked like they were leftover rental furniture from a wedding supply house. The walls were a rather tacky shade of pink. There was the requisite crystal ball on the table, held in a nice black wooden base. A black iron floor lamp in the corner of the room provided light. On the walls were travel posters from the 1920s advertising excursions to Egypt. "Sit, please." "Oh, will that be cash or charge?" Madame said, not even asking what they were there for. "Well, we were wondering," Laurel started. "A reading is $25, please," Madame said. Tom still wasn't used to 21st century prices and nearly fell over at hearing that, even though Laurel suspected that even that was cheap as psychic readings go. "Great," Laurel said, fetching a $20 bill and a $5 bill from her jeans pocket. Tom blushed a bit and felt embarrassed that a woman would pay for anything in his presence, which offended his Victorian sensibilities about wanting to treat a lady to all activities on the town. Madame smiled as she accepted the cash and tucked it into her cleavage, how cliché, thought Laurel, and sat down. Laurel sat down next to her, and Tom sat last, waiting for the ladies to be seated. "You will need help in finding something that is lost, perhaps forgotten," Madame said bluntly, simply stating facts. Laurel and Tom looked at each other, impressed, their confidence in Madame suddenly increasing. She peered into her crystal ball. "Dust. You will find what you are looking for so desperately, what you are seeking, where there is dust, and this shall bring you the relief you seek," Madame said dramatically, looking up at Tom and Laurel, then turning back to the crystal. "Wind. There is a strong wind where you're going," she said, peering into the ball, but then looking up at Tom. "Where you're going, I mean. Where is that?" Tom just smiled wanly and shrugged. Madame looked back at the crystal, then back up at Laurel. "You're not going," she said matter-of-factly, then looked back at the crystal, then looked up. She looked at Laurel pityingly. "I'm sorry, dear. You're not going," she repeated, looking sad, and looking deeper back into the crystal. She shook her head, then looked up again. "I'm sorry. Sometimes the visions are brief," she said, shrugging and standing up. "I hope that was of some help. Dust, I'm sure of it. You will find what you need where there is dust." And she briefly wiped her eye in a quick gesture and rubbed the tip of her nose. She stood up and turned slightly away, again wiping her nose with her finger. Tom and Laurel took their cue that this brief consultation was over and stood as well and made their way out to the front desk and toward the front door. They looked back, finding Madame peering very closely at Tom's face. "Wait! You!" she said, peering intensely at Tom's face, her eyes widening and then squinting, trying to get a better and closer look. You're much, much older than you look," Madame said, starting, curious, at once apprehensive, excited, and amused at her own insight. Tom just smiled his best boyish smile, blushed a little, and turned to Laurel for help. Laurel was eager to diffuse the situation before Madame saw any more. She laughed a bit to ease the tension. "He gets that a lot," Laurel said, somewhat dismissively, waving her off. "It sucks. We're only a few months apart." "Hey, thanks," Laurel said, opening the front door, which jingled with bells hanging from the doorknob. Tom tipped his cap toward Madame as they left, Madame not taking her eyes off Tom as they grew wider, and then looking down and using her foot to keep her solid black cat from going out the front door, too. Tom and Laurel walked quickly away down Main Street, not noticing Madame peering out through the glass of the front window, squinting to see Tom better. She heard the meow of her cat at her feet, shrugged and looked down toward the cat. She took the cash out of her bosom and put it in her purse on the counter behind the front desk. "More food for you, Mr. Dixon, more food for you." Tom and Laurel walked back toward home. "What is that supposed to mean?" Tom asked. "Dust. How are the magic words to my ring in dust?" "I don't know, but it's something. Dust collects on things that are old or aren't attended to," Laurel said. "At least that narrows down the search a little. Don't look anywhere clean." Her iPhone buzzed in her pocket. She took out her phone and read the screen. TJ finally texted back. "No, dunno. What's up?" "At Rocket with PB. You okay?" Laurel typed and replied, "Yeah, might have news. Still working on ideas." TJ replied, "Us too. We'll keep you posted." Laurel looked up at Tom, who was looking over Laurel's shoulder as they walked. Tom shrugged and nodded. Laurel texted back, "Thanks, you guys. Sweet of you." Tom shrugged, looked at Laurel, and gave a mischievous grin. "You could just call, you know," Tom said, sounding more 21st century every day. Laurel smirked, reached up, and pinched his cheek playfully. "And you," she said, "are taking a shower when we get home."